Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Robert, this is Uttam, and we're the leaders of Brainforge AI. Brainforge is an embedded data and AI team helping organizations build their brain. So we take data to system sprawl, and we make that all accessible in a customizable AI native platform. Think Claude Cowork, kind of custom tuned for your organization. And our vision is to close the gap between what software vendors promise and what traditional services firms fail to deliver. And so we have a few different approaches, but really what we are trying to kind of, as Atir already kind of set the stage for, is fill this gap where we feel like the value chain is broken on the software side, where traditionally in the SaaS era, there's a lot of fragmentation, microservices kind of tacked on to implementation of tools, but no one actually owns the outcome. When an organization runs the trouble, they have to hire certified specialists, and that person doesn't really own the outcome either. And so it's just kind of a money pit that keeps growing deeper and deeper. On the other hand, services firms, they're like the special forces. They get brought in when there is a problem to solve. They bring expertise, they bring relationships, they move very quickly. But once they're done with their project, they move on and they also leave a hole that's just as big as what it was before they came in. And so, what we really feel like we're well positioned to do right now is to capture this opportunity where there are many leaders that we're talking to now that see a future where this fragmentation is coming to an end. And they believe that they have the resources and the abilities because of AI advances to build custom tooling fit for their own needs. And so we've been well positioned to meet organizations that are thinking into the future like this, working with companies, growth stage companies, stage Series B and later, all the way up to enterprises and even private equity firms and other institutions with holding companies that want to raise the standard for their portfolio overall. And so what we really believe is that in our approach, there are really three stages that are consistent across all of the different verticals that we work in. One is that it's about getting the data foundation set. A lot of organizations, even clients that we're seeing now, are facing a shift in the control center where users and consumers of data are now shifting to just wanting to get access to immediately and then just throwing it into AI tools. And there's kind of a free for all going on. And so, how do data teams and kind of IT leaders stay in control in a way that users can accept? Is that if they are able to show that with proper governance, the capabilities are better protected, and also the performance is much better. And so, this is one of the fundamental things that hasn't gone away. Data is still just as important as ever. If anything, more people care about it. Secondly, we believe that context management is king. And so institutions, especially more complex enterprises, they have tons of many years of transcripts and other SOPs, operating procedures that are all important context to help drive the steering of fine-tuning AI models in production. And so we're able to harness this on this and make this more accessible for teams. And so here's a glimpse into the team behind the work. There's a few of us here attending today. If you see us, please go meet with us. But we wouldn't be here without a lot of the partners that we implement. And so we are a systems integrator for different tools across the entire data stack. And we believe that this companies trust us in order to continue to figure out what's the best mix of tools for their specific use case. There is no one size fits all, and we understand that the needs are continuously evolving. But let's get to the outcome. What are the actual success that we're actually seeing here? Well, this in three different fronts. And so I'll kind of briefly touch about it and then hand it over to Uttam. But really, at the front end, it's really about being able to track, really understand customer behavior, whether you're a SaaS platform or you're a CPG company selling to customers, getting a good grasp of all of that telemetry and being able to attribute sales and activity to accurate sources, making sure that metrics are consistent wherever they are, and so that conflicting definitions are no longer just a revolving door of confusion within organizations. And then lastly, being able to build the different surfaces that really drive adoption, which has always been the fundamental problem for a lot of data projects, that digital transformation happens, but then there's no new adoption, no new workflows actually being triggered. And we've been able to see success in all three of these areas.
Great. So, one thing Otter mentioned is, how to make this a win-win for clients. And so one thing that we've always tried to do is test our limits on the pricing and the contract side of things. And so we've actually found that, especially in the last 6 to 8 months, folks have been very open to our new way of pricing and constructing contracts that rhyme a lot with retainers, like sort of open-ended retainers that a lot of clients traditionally would be really opposed to. But actually, because we're marketing ourselves as almost a team as a service, and a partner, they're almost viewing us similar to how they would view an internal team, where you give budget, you have goals. And in fact, we're one of the few vendors that actually are forced to provide metrics on the ROI. And so we're moving from traditional T&M, traditional, just hourly or some type of sprint based, to actually being able to do recurring revenue type contracts. So subscriptions to teams, something that's really common in marketing and design, but not really very common in IT service. And so literally last week, we just had a vendor that was like, I wish all of our vendors came to the table with options like this. We've had other clients that similarly are saying, hey, this is like a little too risky. We want to do it traditionally. But a lot of our clients are coming along with us on the ride. So just a little bit about how we're thinking about building towards and achieving these outcomes. So I'm going to go through a couple of use cases at Brainforge about how we're positioning ourselves to achieve 70% margin. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about how we're deploying AI to our clients. So the first thing is like the agentic PMO as an example use case. Typically in companies, project management, internal meetings is a huge, billable item on the P&L. And that was something that I've always tried to attack, not in, removing all the benefit of a PMO, but actually trying to leverage AI to take those standards and drive people towards async communication, and much better SOPs using AI agents to inform them how to work. And so we've seen a reduction in internal time. We've seen everything get tied to an individual ticket, tons of observability, and it's allowed our teams to be smaller. We moved from pods of 5 to pods of 3. We've been able to push people up and have people take on more, and we're seeing it in our gross margin. The other use case is sort of what we're describing as surfaces. So in our business, typically, we're all used to working in Slack, in email, through Zoom, or whatever VS Code you're using to develop work. Well, again, as a services company, my background is in product, so I sort of always fall into the trap of trying to build things for our team, but now it's actually very, very possible. So we have a few different surfaces in the company that allow our team members to be, 5, 10, 15x more effective with their time. Whether it's our own version of Claude Cowork, whether it's a really, really, really robust knowledge repository with all of our client transcripts, a lot of our SOPs, a lot of the ways and the playbooks of where we do work. And then also a really, really integrated development environment for people to use skills, trigger automations, and actually just develop much faster. And this is something that Brainforge provides to our team members. So it's not just like, hey, you get a ChatGPT license. It's like, no, this is actually a much better way to work. And as coming onto Brainforge, you're now 10x more productive for our clients just by being part of the team. And so just talk a little bit about our future, and this is something that I'd love to chat with anybody today, is we're thinking about our company a little bit as a platform, on how do we get the supply side of the equation, which is our amazing team members, into our delivery organization. How do we enable them with surfaces? But at the bottom, how do we enable them with all of the frontier technology, from memory to shared context, to skills, to rules? And then how does all of that work its way back through the delivery ecosystem to the customer? How do we achieve 70% margin and still over deliver, on a really fast timeline for the customer? And I think, talking to Acher last week, this is really like the crowd that I think can take advantage of that. Like, this is a real amazing win-win situation in an industry where it's typically tough to make, just 30, 40% margin. Yeah, and we have a quick video. Okay.